Fill her up.
You're listening to the Gas Digital Network.
Good afternoon, Michael Malice here. Let that be your welcome for the next hour. We have with us my good buddy, genuine general Twitter badass pundit, super lawyer, and his new book comes out today, The 21 Biggest Lies About Donald Trump and You, Kurt Schlichter. Thank you for your service.
Oh, God. I did nothing. I showed up. Perfect attendance.
So your book's out today, so mazel tov on that, and Regnery,
Thank you.
which is a very reputable, established house. I've been looking through this, and there's a lot of questions I have.
Oh,
And
God.
No, good ones. I like this.
See, you actually asked me questions about the books. A lot of guys go, hey, make fun of liberals, which I'm good with.
That's not hard.
That's my ooh. Well, it's like tripping a cripple.
Ooh.
And, yeah.
Ooh.
Am I allowed to say that? Give me a list of things we can and can't say.
It's not the 1930s. You can make fun of cripples.
If I start going down the progressive path of yelling 3 generations of idiots is enough.
Yeah, that was
which I would not do.
Wasn't that the Supreme Court?
I think it was Oliver Wendell Holmes.
Yeah, 3 generations of imbeciles is enough.
Imbeciles.
Yeah.
And imbeciles being the technical term.
Yeah. No, it wasn't for cripples. It was people who were mentally disabled.
No. That was people they considered inferior because of a developmental disability. Apparently, back in the olden days, there were like levels. There was a certain IQ range where you were a moron, an imbecile, an idiot. And I'm like, wow, that certainly strikes us to our modern ear as rather uncool. But back then, they were like, well, it's science, man.
Right.
Why are you denying science?
It was very much science. Yeah, Margaret Sanger was all about this stuff, as were many others.
Oh, dear God, man. Boy, if you want to talk about double-edged sword, science.
Well, how about this? I'm very big on going back and reading the original sources, because a lot of times things will be looked at through contemporary lenses and they will be misconstrued. So
is that even allowed anymore?
Yeah. Well,
are you contaminated by wrong thoughts?
Yes, because I'll listen to what I'm about to tell you. I bought a book from 1934 called The Case for Sterilization, making the argument that people should be sterilized against their will. Because I thought, let's hear it before it became corrupted with a Hitler context, right? Page 1. Well, we don't agree with everything Hitler's doing. I'm like, oh, come on, guys. I was rooting for you. No. Page 1.
No.
This is an American.
Talk about getting it out there up front.
Yeah.
Here's where I stand. Hitler had a lot of problems, but the when I was stationed in Stuttgart, we would go to the Volksfest. The second biggest one was at Bad Cannstatt. The big ones in Munich, but we go down there every fall and we party. And I was actually there the night the wall fell party. It was about 2 weeks in the spring and 2 weeks in the fall. And, the Germans were an annoying people all the time. They're very fussy. But, boy, you get a little liquor into them. Then they'll lean in and they'll be like, you Americans really don't understand about Hitler. He really had some good ideas. And you're just like, shut up. Do the chicken dance.
Yeah.
I'm beer bitter. I'm großen. Just leave me alone. I really, look, I'm not a politically correct guy. And I am also unwilling to hear the upside of Hitler. Except as a curiosity, that is of no interest to me. Thank you, Fritz.
And it's a myth that they made the trains run on time.
Oh, God.
It's a myth. But let's talk about the book.
Sure.
One of the lies
in this
book. Yeah, one of the lies in this book. We're holding the same. There's only one copy. We're both sharing it.
There's one copy. We're tossing it across the country.
Chapter 5, Trump is literally a Nazi, and so are you goose-stepping stormtroopers.
Yes. That's one of my favorite ones, because my thesis is kind of that all notion of reason has been rejected, because reason gets in the way of things. Because to accept the concept of reason, you have to accept the potential for changing your mind. There's no reason to have an argument except to have two idiots shouting at each other. If one of them if one of them or both of them can't possibly alter their position. Now, and when I say two idiots shouting at each other, because I wrote a column in Town Hall recently, Stop Making Sense, where I argued, don't bother reasoning. This is about power, so punch harder.
Oh, yeah.
And so, I mean, there's two ways to resolve an argument. You can do it for reason, or you can do it for force. And if it's going to be force, not my choice, but then but then that's the rule. And the thesis of the book is essentially that these lies are so transparently ridiculous that they are proving that these people are impervious to reason, and in fact have actively rejected it, leaving power as the determiner. And this book is a warning that, you know, sometimes you got to haul off and punch the bully. And that may be what we come to, a situation where we're just saying, well, we can do this because we can, not because it's a good policy, not because it's morally right, but because we can. And it may be those other things, but if you're going down that road trying to prove it, you're wasting valuable time while they're rolling up your freedom.
Yeah, I have a great line that I heard from someone, and you could just tell them, feel free to use this, people. The difference between Trump and the people accusing him of being a Nazi is that Trump's grandchildren will be raised as Jews.
Oh, damn.
But it's a fact.
It
and
is
I say this
fact.
as a New Yorker, and I say this as someone who went to yeshiva. So if you're going to start here's the thing. If you want to start waving that Nazi flag around rhetorically, you better be damn sure your side of the fence is clean. And you
exactly.
If you really care that much about, because Nazism has very specific connotations, not just fascism. Mussolini was his own animal and whatever. We can talk about that too.
The phalangists
of course,
in Lebanon, various South American.
Apparently Hitler's the only dictator who ever lived. If you want to talk, Deborah Eisenstadt, in her book Beyond Belief, she talked about the rise of Hitler in Germany. And of course, this is the 30s. You didn't have cell phone cams. You didn't have the internet. It was much harder to get information and verifiable information. And one of the things she talked about in her book is that many people thought it was, the anti-Semitism he was spouting made waspy journalists uncomfortable. So they omitted it because you don't want to talk about this kind of stuff because it's gross and it's tacky, just like Clinton with the blowjob. And as a consequence, he got away with a lot more than he should have. And one of her conclusions is they were trying to make Nazism separable from anti-Semitism. And she goes, and this is a huge, at best, mistake, if you want to be nice about it. So when they are saying Trump is Hitler and Trump is, a Nazi, that word doesn't just mean someone I don't like.
But that's what it's come to me.
Right.
And here's something that I didn't, I don't think I followed up with it enough in my book. But maybe that's a column out there. But the Germans in the 30s were among the most highly educated, sophisticated, cosmopolitan people. They're still happy to tell you that they are. I mean, I lived there 2.5 years. First Schlichter to live on German soil in 2.5 centuries, and the last for another 2.5 centuries. I just didn't. It's just not my scene. But they very, very well educated, very, very cultured, and they fell for Hitler. They made up, the Einsatzgruppen were a bunch of fucking Germans, okay? These alleged supermen of super intellect who were taking innocent people, putting them on the edge of pits and machine gunning them. That's, and here in the United States today, who are the people trying to take power? Unreserved power. Our elite, our allegedly educated culture of people. So the idea, Scott Adams, who's I love his inflammatory stuff. He said, a little while ago, he puts out a tweet, if Trump loses this election, in a year you'll be dead.
Yeah,
Republicans will be hunted. And people just went off on him. And it's like, well, if you look at history, that is not unknown. I mean, I served in Kosovo. I served in the ruins of a civil war. That stuff happens. And, the Serbs who started it and ended up losing it, another very educated, very proud, very regimented and ordered people. And they'll be glad to tell you. Yeah. So, it's interesting that the very people who, of the same kind of caste, made Nazism actually work in Germany are the same kind of people who are allegedly warning about it, bubbling up from the truck drivers and soldiers and cops and construction workers of America. They think it's going to bubble up from the ground if they don't watch it and stamp it down. It's ridiculous, ahistorical, and bullshit.
I want to talk about a tweet. I know Ben Shapiro is a client of yours. I'm not trying to get in trouble with him, but it was just a little odd to me, and I want to hear your thoughts on it. He's tweeted out this morning as we record, "It is perfectly clear that the disintegrationist view of America, that America is inherently bad, that its systems are immutably racist, is no longer counterculture. It is the dominant culture of our major institutions, from universities to media to Hollywood." I'm surprised. I'm glad he's come to this realization at all. Are you surprised it's taken him this long to reach that point?
Well, look, he's not
more broadly. You don't have to talk about him specifically.
No, he's clearly not the only one, but people are getting woke. And you and I were talking about wokeness a long time ago.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of I have a couple things in my life that I think make me more susceptible to accepting the possibility of the worst case scenario. That includes, I married a woman who, her and her family had to escape a dictatorship, the most prosperous country in the Caribbean. Now it's the poorest Cuba. I served overseas in the Middle East and in the Balkans, and I saw it there. I know a little about history. And I also, on social media, I see what they say in their unguarded moments.
Yeah.
And when people threaten me, I tend to take that seriously. So I saw, and what's the logical stopping point, Michael? What's the logical stopping point for them? Right now, it's okay to silence people who are saying things you don't like. That's okay with our major institutions. And we should talk about those in more detail later. But it is now okay. What stops them from, okay, not only am I going to silence you, I'm going to put you in jail if you say these things. Okay, and then what's the stopping point after that says, okay, I'm going to kill you? Where's the moral break where they go, well, I'll throw you in prison for, waving the American flag, but I won't kill you. Why not? I mean, throughout history, there's been no breaks between those two destinations.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no logical stopping point. You have to stop at the beginning. You have to refuse to get on that path. And that path is acceptance of natural rights. If you accept natural rights and you defend them, then you don't even get started down that road. And that's where we were until not too long ago. And it's amazing to me how quickly it seems an entire generation of our elite caste has come to throw those off. I mean, you look at the New York Times, and the newsroom erupts when a senator elected by his state puts out a view, which I happen to disagree with tactically, and I have a law review article.
But which everyone in America thought about at one point or another.
Yeah, but 60% of Americans, according to polls, I think that's probably about right, agree with it.
But even if they didn't agree, and everyone, 100% counted it. They thought about it.
Well, yeah. Military force can sometimes appropriately be used to suppress civil unrest, which I have personally done. I was in the LA riots, and I just didn't think it should be here. But, I mean, this is not a radical or insane view. This is not, we have to sacrifice to Moloch and, get his good graces back. I propose we take 5,000 virgins and throw them in Mount Lassen. And yet the newsroom erupted, and the institution backed down instead of saying, children, no. We're not doing that. They folded because at some level they're either afraid and agree a little bit or they agree totally.
Yeah.
But they don't have the moral strength to fight. The institutions are exhausted. academia was already collapsing due to technology and its own greed, and the fact that it was putting out people who, if they're, look, I hire young people and I try and hire good ones, but there are some, there's some stuff lacking in even the quote best education. And the academia is already going down. Hollywood was going down. Newspapers and media were going down and changing. A lot of this was technology driven, some economic, but I think a lot of it was moral exhaustion and the inability of them to maintain the standards that and principles that they allegedly believed in. And that makes it easier for people who want to destroy the entire society, because the institutions, through their own failure, are already teetering. I mean, look at the CDC. We all would have thought a year ago, oh, the CDC, maybe they've got it going on. We haven't had a pandemic in 100 years. And now I can go on YouTube and I can show you the same people we're supposed to listen to telling you have to wear a mask. And now we were lying to you about masks. We were just trying to get you not to use them all up.
Let me ask you you're an attorney with a long resume. So here's one of my poll questions, and I throw these out on Twitter because they're thought experiments, and I'm very curious to hear your thoughts. And I'm going to do something a little different. I'm going to give you my answer before I give you yours, so that
it's like cultural Karnak.
Yeah. So the question I put forward is, if you had to repeal one of these two amendments, which would you repeal, the first or the second? Okay, hold on. And a lot of people perceive this as me saying, would you rather have free speech or gun rights? And that's not synonymous. My argument was I would repeal the second, because the second is largely a dead letter, whereas the first still has some kind of legal heft to it. So you're not really losing anything much with the second repeal. The edifices against gun grabbing are cultural, not really legal. Whereas the first one, it really is enshrined in our legal system. I want to hear your thoughts as a lawyer.
I don't think it's enshrined in our legal system anymore.
Okay.
The First Amendment. We just had a decision come down this week that conservatives greeted with joy, 5-4, that said the government can't discriminate against a religious institution.
In
it's
Montana.
giving out checks. Yeah, if it's giving out checks to schools, and it's doing it to everybody, it's got to do it to everybody. You can't be biased.
Hold on. Let me be clear. I might be pedantic, but I think this is a big deal, from my understanding. That money was never government money. It was a private program where Kurt Schlichter donates money to this program. That money goes to poor families, and some of those poor families were using it as credits toward religious schools. And they were saying it's public money because it would have gone into the public till otherwise. So I don't think it ever even reached the government at all, is my understanding.
I'm not sure of that factual thing, but I think the attack on the Blaine amendments, which were put in, forced into some states' constitutions in order to let them into the country, directly anti-Catholic education. In fact, that they were flat out. This is the we're going to own those papists.
Yeah.
And which is interesting because Alito's concurrence was. Went inside a case from last year where on non-unanimous juries. And one of the arguments that made non-unanimous criminal juries unconstitutional was the fact that some of them were put in with distinctly racially discriminatory intent. There was a history there, and he had said that doesn't matter, but and voted against it. But he brought it up here and said, wait a minute. Why isn't that applied here?
Yeah.
And I think this is clearly discriminating against religion. We've seen it also. Apparently, you're immune from the pangolin pandemic if you're protesting wokely. But if you want to go and pray to Jesus or Allah or Yahweh or whoever, suddenly you are you're a virtual petri dish. This is okay with our leadership cast to discriminate against religion is okay with them. They don't consider it important. I think a lot of people who are religious consider it unbelievably important, and a lot of people who aren't religious consider it unbelievably important. I don't, and we talked about the First Amendment. Obviously, there is now a growing consensus among the elite caste that free speech is a problem now that other people besides us are using it.
Yes.
And so I almost would prefer the guns, because if we get into a situation where there's no more reason and there's just power, I'd rather have the power of a 230 grain hollow point 45 round.
Oh, I'm not arguing with that at all. I was just talking about technically.
No, I get it. No, I get it.
So, but you're saying first, if you have to, of those two.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a fair answer. Listen, there's no good choices here.
No. This is making people do things that they don't tend to do anymore, which is examine their premises and understand why they believe what they allegedly believe. And one of the interesting things, I've been in the conservative movement, 30, 40 years, last 10 years or so, I've seen a lot of people who were what you would call liberal, becoming what now is called conservative. And I'm not even sure that's got a real definition anymore. But the movement is definitely towards conservatism. There are not a lot of people going, I think I've got a lot too much freedom. I think I have too many choices.
Hey guys, Michael Malice here. Want to tell you about a sponsor that is near and dear to my body, Sheath Underwear. If you go to sheathunderwear.com and use code Malice20, you get 20% off. What is Sheath Underwear? If the name doesn't tell you, it's underwear. It was invented by a soldier serving Iraq, where things tend to get very hot. What makes Sheath different from regular underwear, pleb underwear? It's a brief with a dual pouch, one for the bottom part of your stuff, one for the top part of your stuff. It's like an inverted kangaroo pouch for your Joey that keeps your genitals from sticking to your legs. They brought them into the office, and I'm like, what the F is this? Because I don't curse, because I'm a good Christian. And then I put them on, and now I wear them all the time because they're so comfortable. And there's something a little subversive about having your underwear cupping you while you're having a meeting, I got to tell you. So this is why I always wear Sheath Underwear. If you go to sheathunderwear.com and use code Malice20, they ship anywhere in the world. Money back guarantee on your first pair if you think it's weird, but you won't, because you put them on, you'd be like, oh, I'm in Michael Malice's pants. And then you're going to say, you're welcome. Let's get back to the show. That is one of your lies. Chapter 10, Trump is not a real conservative, and neither are you, no matter what you actually think.
Yeah, I'm not. Now, to be fair, I'm not exactly sure what it means to be a conservative anymore. If you talk to me,
it's a progressive driving the speed limit.
Well, I'm not even sure I'm that. If you talked to me 10 years ago, I would have defended up and down the Iraq invasion. Now, of course, I was a military guy. I had some inside information, particularly on chemical warfare issues, which I won't talk about. But I was not against it in concept. I was against it in execution. You talk to me now, I'm like, it's a freaking mistake. We need to get out. We need to get out of Afghanistan. I am not a dove. I'm a hawk, but I'm a hawk where there's a reason, where we've got commitment, where there's something important at stake, where it is worth me knocking on the door of somebody in Omaha's house saying your paratrooper son got killed and here's why. And if I can't explain that, I don't want to come knocking.
Yeah. Did you see that clip on Hannity with the dad whose son was killed in that Seattle zone?
I've heard of it. I haven't watched the whole thing, but it's heartbreaking.
Well, the point he makes is he was crying and he goes, still no one has come to my door and told me why this happened. No one has sat me down and said, this is what happened to your son. He's like, this shouldn't be happening, that I'm seeing things on YouTube or the internet when my son was shot and murdered. And you hear it, and it's just really... I'm someone who's a big fan of chaos. Obviously, it's something I push for a lot. And
chaos is great.
The good consequence of it, but
it's got a cost.
But the cost, and you see it, things like this, and it's just amazing how I saw on Twitter a lot of people like, "Oh, Sean Hannity doesn't care about this kid. He's just leveraging this for political purposes." It's like maybe it's both, right? I'll even grant you he's doing this for political purposes, but it is
you can do both.
Yeah, really. I promise you, as a dad, when you hear someone else's son was shot to death, you care a little bit. And I'm not a dad, but I can speak for them in this regard.
Yeah, I mean, here's something that I think is interesting. 14 people were shot and killed in Chicago last week.
Yeah.
And I think you might know, You might know that some of them were very young, 2, 3, 4,
3 years old.
Bet you can't tell me many more details about that. However, 50 years ago on a second-tier college campus, the federal government killed 4 people during a protest. I bet you can tell me a lot about that.
Can I tell you something about that? I can.
Sure.
I had a fan, it got lost in the mail, get a Kent State t-shirt and shoot it up and mail it to me so I could wear it, and it got lost in the mail. So yeah, I can tell you.
Oh my gosh. Did you know the members of Devo were on campus that day, and
No!
the shootings radical, like Mothersbaugh, and I forget the other one, were like literally there and heard the gunfire. I think they knew Allison Krauss, one of the people killed. They were there. Now, interestingly, I was a National Guard cavalry unit. I commanded a National Guard cavalry unit. And with the kind of firepower they had at the range they had, that they only, hit about 14 people. I think it was 9 people. Indicates they were firing over. Most of them were firing over their heads.
Something I talked about.
Terrible leadership, obviously.
Yeah. Something I was talking about recently, and I want to hear your thoughts, is I think it's very telling that if you look at the what is presented in corporate media as our version of history, that the worst thing to happen in the 50s, other than Jim Crow, was the McCarthy era.
Yeah.
And the McCarthy era was the only time when the left got canceled. It's the only time where people who were taking orders from a foreign nation, dedicated to the violent overthrow of the government, Russia, specifically Russia, who were following Stalin's orders at the snap of a finger. One day they're for Hitler and a pact. We don't want war. The next day we have to have war. And when they were losing work because of this, this is a tragedy we still have to mourn over 60 years later.
Yes, that is quite remarkable. Hey, you and I ought to do something super subversive. We should put on a public reading of The Crucible.
Oh, do you know what happened with that?
Blow their fucking minds.
I talk about that in my book, my forthcoming book, because one of the, I forget who it was, she was her author, and Arthur Miller came in with his Crucible. Now, The Crucible, for those who don't know, was a play about Salem, but it was meant to be an allegory of what McCarthy was doing. And she goes, the difference is those witches didn't exist.
Well,
these people were real.
Yes.
Like they were trying to get a nation of Stalinism with concentration camps and a genocide in Ukraine to have him be our leader.
Yes. Yes. I mean, Arthur Miller was, a freaking sap. I mean, didn't he do Marilyn Monroe though?
They got married. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. That's right. And Joe DiMaggio and, Kennedy. God, man, she got around. But she dumped him because he was, a leftist. Couldn't satisfy her as a woman. But
Kennedy was a leftist. I'm sure that guy knew his way around the bedroom, despite the Addison's disease.
God, I think I was talking to Howie Carr, world's #1 expert on the Kennedy's depredations yesterday. And we were talking about Kennedy and Maryland and how, for many reasons, Kennedy could be a Democrat today, including his cisgender lifestyle choices.
What about Rosemary?
Rosemary?
You didn't know about Rosemary Kennedy?
No, the one with the lobotomy?
Yeah, they lobotomized her.
Yes. Yes.
And then they pretended she never existed.
Yes.
I mean,
they locked her away.
And no one talks about this. So for those who don't know,
it's a freak show.
Rosemary Kennedy was kind of special needs, right?
Yeah.
And she was mouthy. They didn't know what to do with her. They took her to a shrink. They gave her a lobotomy. Here's the thing with the lobotomy, Kurt, you might not know this. When you give someone a lobotomy, they have to be conscious. So she had to count backwards from like either Z to A or 10 to 1. And they did it too far. And then she lost her ability to speak, bladder control for the rest of her life, the ability to walk. And then they vanished her, sent her away. And for the rest of her life, they're like, oh, she's doing fine. She's just resting. And they
she said stayed at a farm.
They never went to visit her. They just threw her right. They lobotomized her. And look this up. This is on Wikipedia.
No, I know.
I'm not saying you. I'm just saying it sounds so skeptical, so ridiculous that you hear it. You're like, oh, come on, he's exaggerating. Look this up.
No, these people are freaking insane.
American Camelot. So maybe there is something, Kurt, maybe there is something to these anti-Catholic laws. I don't know, man. We got one in the White House.
God.
People are getting lobotomies.
Oh, man.
Siblings, even. Okay, let's talk about this. What are your thoughts? And I know it's for the wrong reasons, but I'll take what I can get. What are your thoughts on the recent demonization of who I regard as head and shoulders the worst president, most evil president of all time, Woodrow Wilson?
Oh, I'm all for the demonization.
Okay.
Everybody, we're taking his name off this and that. My objection to, I don't want to use reason, because if I used reason, I'd say, well, we should sit down, discuss it, vote on it, hear both sides, figure out an alternative. I am against negotiating when somebody sticks a gun up to my head. And I think it's important to train people not to attempt to bully and intimidate you by telling them to go to hell no matter what they ask. I'd like to give you $1 million. Take it and shove it up your ass. Put the gun away, then we can talk, and I'll take $1 million. But I'm not going to do something because you're telling me I have to. I'm just not going to. And I think that's an important, I think that's something that a lot of Americans seem to have forgotten. There's a lot of strength to come from, no, I refuse to engage in any scenario that doesn't involve reason and due process and thought. I'm not going to do anything because you think you can scare me. And that will mean people do that less because it'll be a less fruitful avenue. They're doing it more now because everybody's scared. I open up my email and, Hertz Rent-A-Car is informing me that they are absolutely woke and that when I rent my next, Ford Escape, it's going to be sufficiently woke.
Were you concerned, given how dynamic politics is and how, in a sense, chaotic President Trump is, were you concerned about writing a book about the president knowing how quickly it could possibly become outdated? That would
Absolutely.
Be my fear.
It's my worst fear. But then again, I've got I think it's line number 4 is Trump's a Russian agent. And that kind of went away, but it's back,
Before, you're right. Trump is Putin's pet, and so are you Russian-loving traitors,
Yeah, which I love to hear as a guy who was literally in the Cold War. I mean, I wasn't in Germany for my frickin' health. I was shivering in the cold outside of Stuttgart at 3 a.m. in the morning while we practiced for when they came over the freaking line. So I always love when some goateed weirdo who can't do a push-up starts telling me I'm not tough enough on the bear. That's always special to me. But I absolutely was worried. Every day is something new. What I tried to do is provide a handbook for people to kind of see the big picture of how it works. It's not the specific lies, because there's going to be a whole set. I could write, the next 21 Lies Part 2, The Quickening, Electric Boogaloo. Am I allowed to say that anymore? Maybe I should wear. But they want to take my Hawaiian shirts. Fuck you. I'm wearing my Hawaiian shirt. But yeah, I could get under 21 lines. What I'm trying to do is show
you can wear the Hawaiian shirt, but you have to have the apostrophe between the I's in Hawaii when you write.
Oh yeah. Oh God, there was somebody on Twitter was going off on pineapple.
Really?
It's not a native Hawaiian fruit. I'm like, okay. It's so obvious. But yeah, I did the book. It covers specific lies, but the larger theme is deception. The larger theme is the attack on reason, and it's a manifestly obvious attack on reason. Reason is not useless, though. Reason is a highly effective tool to use with normal people who don't pay a lot of attention to politics, because a normal person is going to look at some idiot going, Black Lives Matter, and pulling down a statue of Abraham Lincoln. And they're going to think, that's kind of stupid. I don't get it. A woke person's not going to care. They'll come up with, stovepipe hats were worn by overseers, and, his beard is a dog whistle, blah, 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 whatever. Normal people are going to go, that's stupid. And they're going to be more likely to resist the totalitarian mindset. So reason is not useless. Reason is only useless dealing with the caste of our elite. CASTE, for those of you who are counting.
What do you think is the motivation behind this very recent assault on America's monuments? And it's just to be clear, it's not at all any even pretense any longer that this is exclusively on Confederate leaders.
Oh no, it is. I've said for a long time, this is an information operation. To have an information operation,
what does that mean?
there are two kinds of operations. One is kinetic. That is, I'm going to cause you to do what I want by either killing you or scaring you by the thought of killing you. So, I mean, literally pointing a gun at you. Information creates within the other side a mindset where they do the things or don't do the things that you want them to do. That's what's happening here. You see Republicans, scrambling around like we sent them to Washington, D.C. to make Juneteenth a holiday. And it may very well be a nice holiday. I could hear that argument if we were doing arguments, if there was no gun at my head. But there is, so you don't get it. But why would you do monuments? Well, to make an information operation, you need the media, and you need something to cover. Monuments provide a physical space with a physical act that shows massive disrespect and shows the impunity of the law, shows a lot of people. There really aren't a lot of people. Each of these little things, if you put them all together, they'd pretty much be a Lakers championship riot. Local cops could take care of it. But you do it in places where you have local cops who the administration orders not to interfere, and where you have DAs who provide top cover by not charging them for crimes. This is one of the reasons using the federal law to get these people, and Barr is now, picking up these guys. They go, okay, go home. 3 days later, yeah, FBI, come on out here, Caden. That's pretty effective. But you use the monuments because it's a great center for attention. It's perfect. It shows people that they are in control, that law and order doesn't exist, that they can destroy what you believe in, that they are not going to be constrained by your bourgeois concept of rationality. We can do whatever we want, and there's nothing you can do about it. But that's a lie. There is stuff we can do about it. Starting off with going, oh, I realize there's 15 monuments around the United States being attacked right now. That is the rounding error on a rounding error on a rounding error of terrain and population. If there are 1 million people involved in all of this stuff, 1 out of 330 million, I would be staggered and stunned. I mean, they're obviously fellow travelers.
Sure.
The idea is to give an impression of an overwhelming chaos that can't be controlled. Step one, vote for Joe Biden, not because he's going to help us put more of it into place, but because he'll be a pawn that we can keep from stopping us. Trump will act to stop us at the institutional level or government institutional level. And then we can continue on our revolution. So that's why you do statues. I don't give a shit about Cecil Rhodes or they set fire to the elk in Portland the other day, which seems super weird and kind of like pagan, but
I'm thinking of something else that I just realized as we're speaking. One of the things that you, or the first that I saw on Twitter, which I've appropriated from you, is your mom jokes. So someone comes at you on Twitter and you're like, your mom. In a way, this is a your mom thing, in that this is them disrespecting your grandparents or great-grandparents, and you have to sit at home and watch them be shit on.
Yes. It's my way of saying you don't matter.
Yeah.
I'm going to break cultural taboos. And so you can't rely on cultural taboos to protect you.
Yeah.
I'm going to humiliate you and make you powerless. I've broken you. I just told you, I just essentially insinuated your mother was filleting me.
Yeah.
And there's nothing you can do about it. You're just a little bitch. And it's information war. And it drives them crazy because normally the conservative, and whatever that means, person, attempts to at least participate in it with a sense of respect, as if they're going to have an argument and going to have a discussion and they're preparing to hear the other argument. I'm not. You're shit if you're part of that group. I'm going to treat you like it. And the only way you're going to get what you want is if you freaking kill me. And I don't think that's going to happen. So I'm just going to sit here and show you your powerlessness. In that way, I think Andrew Breitbart was one of the first guys to do it. Yep. We have stolen a lot of the tools of the left. And I think we use them to pretty devastating effect. The Alinsky rules are extremely effective tactics. You got to understand, leftists often don't understand, conservatives often don't understand them. But they are a great way to do information warfare. It's a great primer in it.
Do you think the New York Times is in a better position today than it was 4 years ago?
I think it is more comfortable and better fed in its cage than it was 4 years ago.
Okay.
It's got more people reading it. It for now, as long as there is someone to hate, it will be fine financially, but institutionally, its credibility is shot with the people it needed. It doesn't need the the women who lunch in New York. They're always going to read it. What it needs is people outside of New York going, well, the New York Times, that's special. And when now those people are getting woke and they're going, it's not special. They're just a bunch of assholes. They're like that my shitty nephew who came over at Thanksgiving and started yelling how great communism was to Uncle Phil, who got blown up in Khe-Sanh.
Really?
They're that guy.
Like, did that actually happen? Something like that?
No.
Oh my God! Oh,
but
you scared me. Holy
happened.
crap!
But
Jesus.
it kind of happened.
Okay. Oh yeah.
They're that kid, and they're not taken seriously. They're just looked on as somebody who's he's got to be here because he's he's family, even though he's an asshole. Well, I got to get the New York Times because I guess I got to see the book reviews and the bestseller list and the crosswords, but they're assholes. And I think by losing that credibility down the road, what happens when Joe Biden's in there?
Yeah.
Who needs the paper to high five, this sinewy, gaunt, finger banging weirdo?
Let's talk about the recent stuff with the cops and the civil unrest. I thought it was a very, very smart move on Trump's part, and frankly, a testament to his narcissism, which is often maligned, where instead of, if he had sent in the troops, they could have put a stop to it pretty quickly, but then we'd be hearing, look, he's an authoritarian. Not unfairly, they'd be saying this every day until the election and for the rest of our lives. And he, for many reasons, and maybe you're going to disagree with me, I think certainly,
don't.
Okay,
I absolutely agree with you.
Okay, so go ahead.
And I wrote a couple articles on it. I said, this is an information operation, not a kinetic one. Kinetically, look, the 82nd Airborne, you send a battalion into each city, and it's done. So it's not a kinetic fight. But what do you do if you do that? First of all, you risk a Kent State, and we all remember Kent State, all of us. Kent State is a slow Friday night in Chicago, slow one, and we all remember it. So you've got that sitting there, and there are lots of normal people who are like, well, these guys are assholes, but I didn't want to see them get shot.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of other people going,
well, you know what it is? Hold on, you said something very telling. I don't want to see them get shot. They wouldn't mind if they didn't have to see it. Do you know what I mean? Like, there is that cognitive dissonance for a lot of people.
If you didn't have the picture of that girl out there like that with her hands over the body of the guy hit with a 308, but the camera would be there. Cameras everywhere.
Right.
That's the intent. They wanted it. Did you see the collective orgasm the media had when the park police fairly gently cleared Lafayette Park? Oh my God. It was a fucking. It was Bukake Rama 2020. Imagine if some guys with bayonets had come on and done business. The other thing is, a lot of them were leftist areas. Well, all of the ones who were major problems are leftist areas. Now, I understand the logistics problems. Real, experienced guys think logistics, not tactics. Anybody could say, Sergeant, clear that park. But how do you get them there? How do you get them supplied? What happens when what happens if the local DA is not supporting you? You arrest 50 freaking punks, and then the DA refuses to charge them. Army can't go charge them. Right. Cops don't assist, ordered not to. So you got traffic coming through. You're dealing with civilians, regular law enforcement. You bought all that. How are you going to get the logistics in? You send one battalion in, you've got to send pretty much a brigade in to freaking form the logistics. What if one gets hurt? Well, this public hospital, we're not going to treat Army guys. What do you do then? I guess you can medevac them out, but it doesn't become, send a platoon in. No, It becomes an invasion. Okay, and I've done this stuff. I mean, we did in Los Angeles. These are massive muscle movements. So he was right not to do it. The other thing is, he understands an information fight. Just the other day, the cops finally went in and cleared out, Chaz or Chop or Scumbagistan or whatever you call We won.
Soyaddle, they were calling it.
Yeah, Soyaddle. We won. They lost. They don't hold the ground. We're now seeing Trump and his folks are now tweeting wanted posters and news of people getting arrested. We've now won. Yes, it was very frustrating. I had to talk a lot of conservatives off the ledge saying he's not doing anything. Not walking into an ambush is frankly the best thing you can do. And I tell you that as an Army guy. Okay? When you see, they don't, our opponents are very, very smart. They now, some of them are out of control. There are elements that are dumb, but they are strategically savvy to the extent they can be. There's not that many of them. They don't have a lot of firepower, and they have to rely on us making mistakes. When Trump doesn't make mistakes, he steals away one of their most powerful weapons.
Do you think we will see in the fall in-person debates between President Trump and
Absolutely
Joe Biden?
not. That's never going to happen.
Okay.
And I'll tell you, it'll be partly COVID, partly I'm not going to normalize his racism.
Okay.
That, mark my words, I'm as confident of that as I am anything, which means I could very well be wrong.
Well, here's the counter.
Why would you?
Then wouldn't he just say, I hear the Democrats don't want debates, and then it becomes a constitutional amendment, you have to have debates.
Oh, God.
Right?
That would be hilarious.
That's all he would have to do is say, oh, I hear they're scared to debate me.
You know, we should make, they want to see my tax returns. I want to see their candidate.
Yeah.
I think that's, I will see something like that. That Scott Adams showed it with his, if Biden gets elected, you're all going to be dead.
Yeah.
It's the way, and Trump is the master of this. And frankly, I think Scott Adams is one of the best and most incisive analysts of how Trump operates, which I didn't get at first. It took me a while to start putting the pictures together, and I realized, holy shit, this is the best trial lawyer I've never gone up against in court. Trump understands how to start the debate, and he can do that with a tweet. And they keep falling into the trap. It's pretty amazing. But no, there's not going to be any debate. Why would? Do you think Biden could actually coherently debate for 2 hours?
But I am curious how they're going to, in 1920, right, when it was 2,000% certainty that the Republicans were going to win the White House after Woodrow Wilson, who had been the only Democrat elected other than Grover Cleveland since World War II, the Civil War, and he was hugely unpopular. The boys are coming home, and they knew they had in the bag, and they're trying to figure out who they're just going to put. And the guys came in that cigar-filled room. They picked Warren G. Harding, senator from Ohio, who'd be the only senator elected to the presidency since before Andrew Jackson, since Van Buren or something, and ever. He was the first one. He was the first senator elected directly to the presidency. And they sat down, they said, we just got to figure out how to get Warren to stay home and shut the F up. Because they knew, he starts talking, it's just going to make a problem. Anytime you hear Biden speak, even if he's saying things that you would think would be persuasive and not particularly objectionable, his English is just off. Do you think they're going to be able to keep him quiet until November?
Well, the media will help them, but Trump,
okay.
and Trump's going to jam it up their asses, and he's not going to do it for a while. Donald Trump is a normal person at heart. He's got a lot of extraneous characteristics.
You think he's normal?
I think he thinks like normal people.
Okay,
do.
That's not the same.
That's not the same. He's an exceptional person, but he has what I like to think of as bar philosophy.
Yeah.
You go into a bar, and there'll be a guy there who's his patriot, may even have a Marine Corps a tattoo on his arm. He's going to say, well, if we've been in Afghanistan for 20 years, and we haven't won, and our boys are still getting killed, and they won't make it happen, why the hell don't we come home? And then you get some guy, well, at the Brookings Institute where I work, we understand that there's a wide correlation of forces. We have blah, blah, blah. And he's like, well, it's been 20 years, man. Yeah. Are you going to win this shit or not? You're not going to win it. Get the fuck out. Take our guys home. Well, you don't understand. See, there's many nuances. That's the difference. Trump thinks like the guy in the bar. And he doesn't think anybody's going to pay attention to this election except us Twitter nerds until about Labor Day.
Yeah.
And then people are going to go, oh, it's an election, right? What do I think? I get, Trump's kind of wild, but this guy's old as fuck. I mean, he farts dust. Jennifer Rubin's looking at him going, eh. It's a bad scene. And I think that's when you're going to hit him. When he figures, yeah, people are going to start paying attention.
It's also really smart because if you hit him now hard, they have every excuse to sit him down and be like, you just say it's a health issue, we're putting in Hillary.
Yep.
And they got him in that nomination. They can take it away from him, in my opinion.
Yes. Yeah, they've got to – you don't want to peak too early. That's what I was saying about, there was a lot of huffing and puffing in June about poll numbers and Trump's losing and he's doomed. I'm like, dude, he's got 4 months.
It's also, dude, do you not remember 2016?
24 hours. Yeah.
You heard this in 2016 up to Election Day.
Yeah. And I'm a military guy. I never want to believe something that works for me. I always feel like, I'm fooling myself. I think I use the example in the book where I talk about how the Army in Desert Storm fought an elite corps of highly trained professional soldiers with the best Russian-made equipment. They were masters of their equipment. They knew the ground. They knew every ditch, hill, wadi, valley, nook. They were going to kick our asses up and down. I saw the war plan the day before the ground war started. I saw the unit I was going to be with was supposed to be rendered combat ineffective, wiped out on the breach operation. We were supposed to be knocked out. And they of course went through it like a hot knife through butter. Turned out these Republican Guard guys their equipment didn't work. They didn't know their tactics. Half of them were conscripts and were only too happy to throw their shit on the ground and raise their hand. The point is we fought the strongest possible enemy, not the one we wanted to fight. And I think a lot of liberals are fighting the one they want to fight. I don't think they understand the conservatives. They don't understand Trump supporters. The example I give a lot, and you may have a different one. I've yet to meet anyone who tells me it's different. I know a number of people who said, I didn't vote for Trump in 2016, but I'm going to this time. And it's obvious, it usually kind of whispered, especially in California where I am. I do not know anybody except dedicated never-Trumpers who actually voted for Trump and supported him in 2016 and is not doing it now. I would like to. It worries me when I get data that supports what I want to have happen.
Here's a tough prediction, Kurt Schlichter, Esquire. Will we see a Supreme Court vacancy by December 31st, 2020?
We will not. The rumor is Alito or Thomas.
Well, there's also Ginsburg and Breyer, which would be involuntary vacancies.
Those would be involuntary. And of course, I don't want to wish ill on anyone. But, Ginsburg's one of the only leftists who I have some respect for because she's so fucking tough. It's like, you're not a sissy.
Right.
I respect you as an enemy. I want you off the court. I would prefer that you go because you retire to be with your family. But I do respect her, and I don't wish her ill in a larger sense. I just wish she was on a Supreme Court. It is 2020. I could see in October one of those two saying, "Hey, that's all she wrote, boys," and I could absolutely see it.
And they would absolutely fill it in a recess appointment. Not a recess appointment, in that window between November and January.
McConnell. Look, gosh, there's so many individuals in places and facts and that each of them is just key to this bizarre Jenga tower that is our current situation. One of the key ones has got to be Mitch McConnell.
Oh, yeah.
Who gets a lot of grief from conservatives. I have come around to Hugh Hewitt's way of thinking. By the way, I'll be guest hosting for him Thursday and Friday of the week of 4th of July this week. And
this is airing on July 7th, day of the book release.
Yeah, so
in the past,
but he says this is the best Senate Majority Leader, most powerful, smartest, toughest, maybe in history, and I think maybe you're right. He has managed to do nearly the impossible, and I am not a murder turtle fanboy. I just like Ginsburg. I just respect people who fucking take care of business. That's why clowns like Lou and Schiff, who imagine themselves as these super mocker, make it happen kind of guys, and they're just fucking clowns. They don't.
I got a question for you. This is one I just thought of, and I don't know my answer. Who is a stronger in your, and I know you respect both of them on some level, who do you think is a stronger congressional, now that I talk, I know what my answer would be. Who do you think is a stronger congressional leader, Chuck Schumer or Nancy Pelosi?
I gotta go with Pelosi.
Yeah. As soon as you think about it, it's clearly Pelosi.
Yeah. She's, you know, I don't understand people who think she's dumb.
Right. Just because she can't talk, but that's a function of age.
It is a function of age, but she's kicked our ass a lot of times. And if you want if you want me to respect you, a good way to do it is to kick the shit out of me. I'm not going to make me like you.
Right.
But I don't want to be a little bitch. I mean, she gets shit done. She is a tough enemy. And you should, again, always fight your strongest enemy.
We're running out of time. What has been your favorite part? What has been your favorite part of this episode?
I just like hanging out with you, and I know that's kind of sucking up to the host, but I just really enjoy the chance to talk with somebody who has I pimped my book. I'm pretty much Dolomite with this thing. It's fun to be with somebody who has who's well read, has a wide range of ideas, and is curious. And I think that's an important part of whatever we're in. And again, the word conservative, you get stuck in conservative because you're not a leftist, but you're not a conservative. But you're conservative friendly.
And you are welcome.